Hey guys, tonight we wake up somewhere cold, quiet, and medieval, in a room with stone walls, no curtains, and a draft that hasn't been friendly since spring. You're not royalty, not a knight, not a historical celebrity. You're just a person trying to keep your blanket from slipping off your straw-stuffed mattress while the bell for morning prayers is already tolling. And no, you probably won't survive this, at least not without a splinter, a sigh, or a suspiciously long splatter of porridge on your tunic. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know your location and local time. I love hearing from sleepy listeners all over the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. No. You wake to bells. Not the melodic kind, not the delicate, you're late for tea kind. These are deep, bronze-throated bells that shudder against the morning mist like someone trying to rattle the sky awake. Your eyelids protest, but the air is already nudging you up. Cold, damp, smelling faintly of wax, wool, and something mysterious that lives in corners older than memory. You blink at the beams above you, darkened from years of candle smoke and monks whispering bedtime prayers. The blanket slips. You retrieve it half-heartedly, then swing your legs over the side of the cot. Stone underfoot. Always stone. Cold enough to make your joints creak and your sense of time blur. You shuffle into your tunic. The wool is thick, scratchy, a color somewhere between mud and unbothered mushroom. You reach for your belt and pull it snug, then pat the pouch on your hip. Still there. It holds one wooden coom, a coin you forgot to spend last feast day, and a pebble you meant to return to the garden but didn't. Mainstream historical fact. Most monastic or village dwellings were furnished with the bare minimum: straw bedding, a stool, a chest, and occasionally a curtain for modesty. Insulation was limited to prayer, firelight, and as many layers as your conscience allowed. You splash your face with water from the basin. It's cold enough to make you question your life choices. Somewhere outside, someone's already sweeping. The rhythmic rasp of broom on flagstone floats in through the shuttered window like an invitation you didn't ask for. You open the door and step into the hallway. Soft footsteps, distant footsteps, whispered greetings from men in robes or women in aprons. Someone's carrying a bucket. Someone else is yawning behind a sleeve. The morning has started without you. That's fine. It always does. You pass through a low archway into the cloister. The sky overhead is pewter gray, diffused with mist. The garden beds are still dew-tipped. One robin is perched on the edge of a water barrel, preening like it owns the place. You nod to it. It ignores you. Your task today is simple. Grind grain in the mill house. It's not glamorous. It's not heroic, but it's warm. You make your way down the outer corridor, boots scuffing mossy stones. Your breath leaves puffs in the air. You pull your cloak tighter. The smell of baking bread drifts from the kitchen. You consider detouring, but the bell rings again, and you're not sure if that's a warning or a reminder. As you approach the mill house, the sound grows. Wood creaking, water rushing, the deep whoosh of the wheel turning like the world's sleepiest Ferris wheel. You duck under the lintel and step inside. Warmth. Finally, the millstone is already turning. You greet the boy feeding oats into the hopper. He grunts back, then gestures to the other sack. Your job is to scoop, stir, and not let anything explode. You can do that. Quirky tidbit. Mill houses were often the warmest buildings in a settlement, thanks to constant motion, friction, and unclosed spaces. Some people lingered there longer than they needed, pretending the sack was heavier or the grain more complicated than it was. History remembers heroes, but not the ones hiding from the wind in flour sacks. The grain hums as it moves. The dust rises in lazy clouds, catching light from the high window like golden ghosts. You work slowly, rhythmically, thinking of nothing in particular. And in that moment, hands dusty, arms sore, Breath steady, you feel the quiet comfort of being part of something utterly ordinary. You don't need a title. You don't need a legend. You just need your boots to stay dry and your bread to rise. The robin lands outside the window. You glance up. It still doesn't nod back, but the wheel keeps turning. And that, for now, is enough. The grain keeps coming. Scoop, pour, shift your weight. Listen to the slow grind of stone on stone, the rattle of the chute, the sigh of dust as it settles on your sleeves. The boy next to you hums now and then, tuneless, repetitive, oddly calming. His boots thud in a rhythm that syncs with yours, and neither of you speaks unless something breaks, which it hasn't, yet. You pause for a moment to wipe your hands on the hem of your tunic. The fabric's already streaked with flour and oat husk. There's a bit of grain stuck in your sleeve. You don't bother fishing it out. That's tomorrow's irritation. Outside the millhouse window, the mist has started to lift. You can see the tops of the cloister walls now, draped in ivy that never really dies back. A pigeon flaps past and settles on the roof with all the grace of a small sack of turnips. The wheel creaks again and again. You glance up at the candle stub burning on the corner shelf. Still a good hour before you're expected to stop. Mainstream historical fact. Millwork wasn't just labor, it was essential. Every village had some form of communal grinding setup, and keeping it running meant the difference between bread and broth. Most workers didn't own the mill. They leased the space, waited in turn, and passed the time the only way they could, slowly. You lean against the doorway and stretch your arms overhead, bones clicking gently. The mist has started to fade into pale morning light. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then twice. The boy gestures with his chin toward the door. Switch. You nod. He takes the scoop. You step outside. The cold hits your cheeks like a polite slap. You breathe deeply. The air smells of moss and flour and wood smoke, drifting from the kitchen hearth. You turn toward the garden, your next task, and start walking, boots crunching gently over gravel and frost-kissed grass. The garden gate sticks. It always does. You lift the latch with your elbow and shoulder it open. And there it is. Row upon row of sleepy green. Cabbage heads bowed like monks at vespers. Leeks still stiff with dew. A row of beets, daring the cold to try anything funny. You walk the rows slowly, hands in your sleeves. You talk to the plants, not loudly, just enough. You tell the carrots they're doing fine. You tell the lettuce not to worry about its neighbor. Some leaves are just like that. You kneel beside the rosemary. It's clinging to life. You brush frost from its stems with the edge of your cloak and hum softly. Quirky tidbit: speaking to plants wasn't always seen as odd. In some parts of early Europe, it was encouraged. Farmers believed plants responded to tone, patience, even rhythm. Singing to leeks, complimenting beans. The idea was not to charm them, but to remember they too were alive. You spend the next half hour checking for pests. One caterpillar, 2 snails, and a beetle that's too quick for its size. You relocate them carefully. The goose would eat them, but you don't trust the goose with anything fragile. And speaking of geese, there she is. Ethel, standing near the compost heap like she owns it. Which she does. You bow, because it's safer. She honks in disapproval. You retreat to the herb bed. Time for watering. The barrel is halfway full. You dip the ladle and start gently splashing the roots. The cold water smells faintly of cedar and yesterday's rain. Each splash is a soft plip, a tiny percussion beneath the wind. You water until your hands go numb. Then you stop. You stretch again and admire your work. Nothing dramatic, but neat, tended, still growing. You pick a sprig of mint for later, tuck it behind your ear like a secret. Then you return to the cloister, back through the arch, past the pigeons, past the monk who always squints when you smile. You head toward the dining hall, not because you're called, because you're hungry. Inside, the long table is already filling. Bread, cheese, a steaming pot of something beige and earnest. You take your spot, dip your bowl, break your bread. You chew. You listen. To wooden spoons clinking against clay. To the quiet thrum of voices speaking only when necessary. To the fire sighing softly behind you, its logs crackling like a warm yawn. You dip your spoon again. Think about nothing, and let the moment carry you like water in a mill race. You finish your meal slowly, chewing the last bit of bread until it dissolves into something like thought. The others drift away one by one, some to the scriptorium, others to the woodpile, a few just disappearing into shadow like they were never really there to begin with. You sit a moment longer, not because you need to, just because the bench is warm. The fire behind you cracks again, soft and steady, the way it always does right before it's left to smolder on its own. You stand, stretch your legs, and feel the pleasant ache of a morning well spent doing absolutely nothing spectacular. Your next task waits behind a narrow door in the East Hall. Mending. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just you, a pile of socks, a needle that favors the left-hand twist in its steel, and a patch of light from the high-arched window that moves just fast enough to be unhelpful. You collect the basket from under the shelf and bring it to your seat. The stool wobbles, as always, and you adjust it with the folded square of cloth you keep there just for this purpose. Socks. Wool. Scratchy. Gray. Familiar. You thread your needle. Twice. It frays. You try again. Mainstream historical fact. In medieval and early modern households, repairing clothing was not just a necessity, it was a daily act of survival. Wool was precious. Linen was valuable. A well-patched garment said as much about your skill with thread as it did your access to firewood. Even small tears were addressed quickly, and a sturdy sock could last longer than a broom. You start with the heel. Always the heel. The wool puckers beneath your fingers. You hum quietly, off-key, repetitive, familiar. A song you can't place, or maybe one you made up to fill the quiet. Stitch, pull, knot, trim. You move to the next sock. The light shifts. You keep going. Outside, you can hear someone chopping wood, each strike a clean, solid thunk. Between hits, birds chirp from the high branches. You imagine them watching the humans fumble through their repairs, unimpressed but entertained. You glance up at the window. The clouds have finally moved on. Sunlight streams through, dust motes spiraling like soft snow caught in amber. You pause to warm your hands in the patch of light. The cat appears. Not yours, not anyone's, but familiar. She hops onto the windowsill, curls into a near-perfect loop, and closes her eyes. You go back to stitching. Quirky tidbit. Cats were valued in monastic communities for their role in protecting books from mice. Some even became accidental contributors to medieval manuscripts, paw prints on vellum pages, hairs trapped in bindings, or sudden gaps in ink lines where a tail brushed the wet page. You finish the sock. You place it in the done pile and look at your work. Uneven. Sturdy, good enough. You stand, stretch, return the basket to its shelf. The sun has moved on, leaving your window a little cooler, a little quieter. You walk slowly through the hall toward the cloister again. Not rushing. Nothing in this day is rushing. You pass the chapel. You hear the distant drone of chant, half-voiced, slow and round and heavy with breath. You pause beside the door, just long enough to let the sound wash over you. You don't go in. Not today. You continue past the laundry lines, flapping like flags without countries, and find yourself back near the stables. Someone's sweeping. You offer to help. They nod. You take the broom. It's older than you. Feels like it. You begin at one corner, moving the dust out in lazy spirals, not because it's efficient, but because it feels good to shape the space around you. Straw, hay, dirt, hoofprints, all brushed into a soft cloud that glows in the angled afternoon light. Mainstream historical fact: cleanliness in medieval settings wasn't sterile, just rhythmic. Sweeping was as much about presence as hygiene. It marked time. It calmed breath. It cleared not just dirt, but noise. You sweep until your arms feel loose and your breath has settled into a rhythm you didn't notice was missing. Then someone calls for supper. You lean the broom against the wall and follow the sound of bowls being stacked and spoons being ladled. There's a new pot on the fire tonight, lentils maybe, parsnips, something with time. You sit. You eat. You say nothing, because silence here is not emptiness. It's a kind of fullness, a kind of warmth. The stew is simple, hot, thick, slightly oversalted. You burn your tongue on the first bite, then pretend not to care. Someone beside you passes bread without asking. You nod in thanks. The crust is too hard, the middle faintly damp, but it's warm, and your hands like having something to hold. The light from the high windows has gone soft now, honeyed and slow. Candles flicker at intervals along the wall, each haloed with little domes of melted wax like slow-moving petals. You eat in near silence. A throat clears. A bowl scrapes. The soft clink of spoon against pottery plays like percussion in a room of low breathing and tired feet. When your bowl is clean, you set it on the long table's edge. The others do the same, one after another. A slow rhythm of closure. Outside, the sky is leaning toward dusk, the kind where the blue folds into itself and forgets where it started. You take your turn at dish duty. The water is lukewarm and faintly gray. You dip each bowl gently, careful not to splash. The soap is soft and nearly scentless, lard and ashes, mostly. Your hands know the steps now. Rinse, rub, rinse again, stack. Mainstream historical fact: soap making in medieval communities was a low art, often the work of women or itinerant workers. It rarely smelled pleasant. Ash-based lye was harsh, but effective. Scented soaps were expensive imports, reserved for noble households or monasteries with particularly ambitious apothecaries. You dry your hands on your tunic. Someone has lit the torches along the corridor. They hiss as they catch. You step out into the cloister walk again, where the breeze has turned cooler and the courtyard garden holds just a hint of evening's breath. Lavender bending low, moss damp underfoot, the scent of damp stone and thyme clinging to your sleeves. You walk the square once, slowly, feet soft on the worn path. You could go back inside, but the sky has gone that rare kind of blue, the one that makes you stop walking without realizing why. So you sit on the edge of the fountain, and you listen, not for anything, just to listen. A bell rings, low and distant, vespers maybe, or someone testing the clapper. It echoes softly between the stones. Quirky tidbit. Some monks claimed they could tell the time of day purely by listening to echoes. The pitch of the bells returned across different walls, the way the air carried certain tones at dawn versus dusk. Whether or not this worked, it made the bells seem like more than just a call. It made it feel alive. You stay there until the stars begin to gather. Not many. Just the early ones. The brave ones. The kind that arrive when the sky's still deciding what color to be. Eventually, the cool finds your sleeves, slips past your collar, tells you it's time. So you rise. Walk back inside. The long hall is quiet now. Most have turned in. Candles flicker in wall niches, each one humming its little golden song. Your room is small, familiar. The bed is still unmade, the blanket slightly skewed, the straw beneath it lumpy, but blessedly warm from the sun that once touched it. You light your own candle, carefully. Just one match. It sputters, then steadies. You sit on the edge of the bed. Take the sprig of mint from behind your ear. You set it on the table. And just sit. You let your shoulders drop. Let the quiet wrap around you. You listen, faintly, to the distant murmuring of someone reading aloud, somewhere down the hall. You can't hear the words, just the melody of voice against silence, like wind through barley. You lie down. Pull the blanket over your chest. The candle wavers beside you. The cat, still not yours, hops onto the foot of the bed. She needs the blanket exactly 4 times, then settles. You close your eyes, not to escape, but to rest, because today was full, and tomorrow will be too. But for now, all you have to do is breathe. You wake to birdsong, not the sharp call of sunrise, the softer kind. The kind that comes after the world has already stretched, yawned, and settled back into its quiet tasks. The kind that makes you wonder if you overslept, even though time here doesn't run with clocks, but with bread, bells, and when the cat decides to nudge your nose. You sit up slowly. The candle on your bedside table has burned itself out. The wax curled in on itself like a sleeping snail. Outside the narrow window, light filters in through linen and dust. The cat is gone. Your blanket is crooked again. Of course it is. You dress without thinking. Tunic, belt, boots still damp near the toes. You fold your blanket for once, no reason, just a small kindness to the space. You open your door into the corridor. Someone's already sweeping. Someone's always already sweeping. You nod. No one nods back. That's not rude. It's just early. Today, your task is water. From the well. The one that's definitely far too far from where it needs to be. Which, historically speaking, is basically every well that's ever existed. You retrieve the bucket. Solid wood, iron hoops, one handle that sticks a little when it's cold, and begin your walk. Mainstream historical fact, most medieval wells were outside the main living space for cleanliness reasons, but this led to endless daily walks with buckets, pails, and jugs. Water was precious, heavy, and inconvenient. The average person spent hours each week just carrying it. The path curves gently away from the buildings, past the garden, past the orchard, past the goose Ethel, who flattens herself into a menacing loaf and dares you to make eye contact. You do not. The well is down a slope, beside a crooked fence and a patch of moss that's always damp no matter the season. You lower the bucket, hand over hand, listening to the soft creak of rope, the cool splash as it touches surface. You wait. Let it fill. The wind nudges your sleeves. A leaf spins at your feet. Someone in the distance is chopping wood again, always chopping wood. You draw the bucket up slowly. It sloshes, cool droplets flicking onto your boots. You carry it carefully back up the slope. You don't spill much. You only curse once, and only quietly. At the top of the path, you pause. Not for breath, just for the view. The roofs of the cloister curve like worn bones beneath the rising sun. Smoke drifts gently from one chimney. The bell tower casts a long shadow across the garden beds. You carry the water to the scullery. Dip a ladle into it. Pour some into the basin. Wash your hands. Watch the dirt and mint bits swirl away. Someone appears behind you, offers a second bucket. No words. You nod. Take it. Back to the well you go. The cat follows you halfway this time. She stops near Ethel. They stare at each other for a full minute before mutually agreeing to walk away in opposite directions. Quirky tidbit. Animals in medieval communities had social reputations. A goose that hissed at everyone was respected. A cat that never left the library was studious. These weren't jokes, they were folklore. Generations remembered animals by name, personality, and occasionally, crimes. By the time you fetch the third bucket, your arms are warmed, your cheeks pinked, and the morning has fully arrived. Back at the hall, someone offers you a cup of tea. You take it. It's hot, slightly bitter, steeped with something that tastes like nettle and responsibility. You sit on the bench outside the chapel. Sip slowly. Watch 3 bees dance above the lavender bush. One lands on your sleeve. You don't move. You listen to the wind move through the cloister arches like an old sigh. Then you head inside. There's bread to slice, a stool to fix, an egg to find that someone swears was hidden on purpose. But none of it's urgent. You've carried the water, and that's enough for now. The egg hunt begins as it always does, with a shrug and a guess. Somewhere behind the woodpile, or beneath the cart, or under the rosemary bush again, a hen has decided the nesting box is too obvious. You're handed a basket and pointed vaguely toward the herb garden. No one explains. They never do. You start with the usual suspects. Beneath the bench, behind the rain barrel, beside the goose co-op, Ethel honks once and you retreat. You'll check there later. Maybe. The grass is damp beneath your boots. The morning sun now rests fully on your shoulders, heavy but welcome. The sky is soft today, clouded in the corners like it might change its mind. Mainstream historical fact: chickens in medieval communities were free-range by default. Nesting boxes were more of a polite suggestion than a system. Finding eggs was part of the daily routine, like gathering kindling or chasing geese. No 2 days guaranteed the same hiding spot. You crouch by the rosemary. Brush aside a patch of long stems. One egg, tucked neatly between the roots. Warm. You place it in your basket like it's made of glass. You whisper thanks to the hen, wherever she is. Then you search the edge of the orchard. No eggs there, but a pear has fallen. Soft, overripe. You press it gently. It gives like a good pillow. You take it with you anyway. Back near the cloister wall, under the old cart, you spot another. This one colder, a little speckled, probably yesterday's. Still good. You reach for it. Your sleeve snags on a nail. You mutter a very medieval sort of curse under your breath. It involves sheep, possibly in Latin. You shake free and check your sleeve. Minor tear, easily patched. You add the egg to your basket, now 3 strong, 1 warm, 1 cool, 1 slightly cracked. You bring them to the kitchen. Someone nods. That's the thank you. You place them in the bowl by the hearth and wipe your hands on your tunic. You step outside again. No list, no tasks, just time. So you walk. Down the slope behind the stables, past the blackberry bramble that no one admits belongs to anyone. You find a spot under the alder trees. Sit on the soft earth. Pick a bit of moss off your boot. Watch ants do complicated things with great seriousness. You lean back. Let your eyes close for just a moment. Quirky tidbit: resting in the middle of the day wasn't always frowned upon. In agrarian communities, especially during warmer months, a midday pause was common. Not quite a nap, not quite work, just stillness. A moment to check in with your own breath. You hear the bees before you open your eyes again. They move through the air in lazy loops. You watch them work. They don't seem in a hurry. Neither are you. Eventually, you stand, stretch, brush the dirt from your sleeves. Back at the cloister, someone has left a loaf on the table. A heel is missing. You tear a chunk for yourself and chew it slowly while leaning against the warm wall. The stone holds heat from the sun like it means to share it with someone. You let it soak into your back. You think about nothing in particular, just the sound of feet passing, the smell of mint crushed beneath a boot, the way the sky, when you're not trying to name it, just feels like sky. The bell rings once, then again, not urgently, just a reminder. You smile. Turn toward the chapel. Your hands still smell like rosemary. You think about washing them, but decide not to. You enter the chapel through the side door, where the hinges always groan like they've been awake longer than you have. The air inside is cooler, stone cooled, candle warmed, echo still. It smells like beeswax, old wood, and something faintly metallic, like the scent of bells themselves. Someone coughs once. Someone else sighs. The benches creak as people settle into place, not urgently, but with the weight of knowing this is what they'll be doing for a while. You sit near the back. You always do. The seat is slightly warped, which means you can lean a little to the right and still look straight ahead. There's a crack in the wall above the altar where a vine once grew in, was cut back, and then grew in again. It's a familiar imperfection. You watch it more than the windows. Mainstream historical fact. Chapels in small monastic or village communities were often maintained by the people themselves, patched, repainted, propped up where needed. Some featured mismatched pews, uneven stonework, or reused altar cloths. But the rhythm of gathering, of coming together in quiet, was often more important than the perfection of the place. The candles flicker in their iron sconces. The stained glass throws pale color across the floor, faint today, too much cloud for drama. A voice rises at the front. Not loud, not fiery, just measured, practiced. Some you've heard 100 times. You murmur the first lines, then let your voice fade into the rhythm of everyone else's. You listen more than you speak. You close your eyes. You don't fall asleep, but you do drift. Let the sound of Latin and linen and careful pacing carry you. Quirky tidbit. Not everyone in medieval chapels understood Latin, especially in rural areas. But the repetition was comforting. People followed by rhythm, by breath, by the gentle rise and fall of tone. Familiar words meant less than the familiar sound. When the bell rings again, marking the end, you don't move right away. You stretch your legs, stand slowly, and file out behind the others. Outside, the light has changed. Not brighter, just softer, like the afternoon has settled in, comfortable in its middle. You head toward the courtyard, where someone is fixing a hinge. You watch them work for a minute, hammer tapping, nail bending, muttered frustration. You offer to hold the door. They nod without looking up. You hold it steady while they work. It doesn't take long, but it's enough. Afterward, you take a slow walk past the bee boxes. The hives are busy today, gentle buzzing rising and falling in waves. You keep your distance, but not much. They seem content. You hum a little tune. The same one from the sock mending, though now it has a second verse you didn't know you knew. You sit by the garden wall and watch the clouds for a while. One looks like a loaf of bread. One looks like Ethel. You laugh quietly. Then you hear the distant squeal of something escaping. Yes, the pig. Again. You stand, brush off your tunic, and begin the chase. The pig is always faster than it should be, rounder than it should be, mysteriously agile. You follow it through the herb garden, around the laundry lines, past a surprised monk holding a jug of turnip stew. The pig dodges left. You follow. The pig doubles back. You do not. Eventually, someone else catches it. You pretend it was your plan all along. Mainstream historical fact. Pigs, though vital to many medieval communities, were notorious escape artists. They were smart, independent, and frequently caused havoc. Whole village meetings were once held to discuss how to fence them better and how to keep them out of the grain stores and the chapel. You walk back, slightly out of breath, cheeks red, one sock askew. The bell rings again. Evening already. You light a small lantern and place it on the wall near your door. The cat returns. She brings a twig this time. Drops it near your boots like it means something. You thank her. She doesn't stay. You enter your room. The air smells like ash and rosemary. You place the twig beside your mint sprig. It looks like it belongs there. You sit for a while, then lie down, blanket up to your chin, one arm out, fingertips resting near the lantern's glow. You think, briefly, about the pig. Then forget even that, and sleep. You wake to the sound of rain. Not thunder, not downpour, just the soft, steady kind that patters gently on the thatch above and whispers along the window ledge. A rhythm so consistent you're not sure at first whether it's real or part of a dream about cooking lentils. You open your eyes. Everything's gray, but warm. The cat is back, curled in a near-perfect circle near your knees. You stretch, careful not to disturb her. She lifts her head just enough to blink at you. You take this as approval. You sit up slowly, listening to the sounds beyond your room. Bare feet, distant laughter, a spoon tapping against clay. Today's not a feast day, but it feels like one. You dress in your second tunic, the one with slightly fewer patches, and you step into your boots, which are still just a little damp from the pig chase. You grab your cloak, fasten it with a bit of cord, and duck into the corridor. The stone floor is cooler than usual. A few drops of rain have found their way inside, pooling in the low places like puddled thought. You walk carefully, past the sleeping hallway, into the kitchen. It smells like soup. Turnips, barley, something green and generous. Someone hums. Someone else drops a spoon. Mainstream historical fact. Rainy days often brought everyone inside, and together, chores changed. Some paused, some shifted indoors. Meals stretched longer. Stories were more common. Laughter, quieter. Rain gave permission to rest without guilt, and people leaned into it like a wool blanket just out of the sun. You're given a ladle. No instructions. You stir the soup. It simmers, soft bubbles rising like whispers. You let it cook slowly, watching the steam curl and fade. You find yourself humming. The same tune again. It's fully yours now. No second verse needed. The rain continues. You take your bowl outside to the covered porch. The overhang keeps the worst of it off. The rest feels welcome. You eat slowly. Watch the drops chase each other down the edge of the roof. A mouse scurries by. The cat does not follow. She has chosen warmth over instinct today, and so have you. When the bowl is clean, you set it aside and wrap your cloak tighter. You walk the long cloister hall, just a walk. You pause by the window where you usually see the robin. He's not there today, probably hiding or watching from a better window. The laundry lines hang empty for once. Just a few clothespins swinging in the breeze like lazy acrobats. You find your way to the storage room. No one's asked, but you start sorting things. Just a little. You stack the clay pots, fold the spare cloths, rub dust from shelves with the edge of your sleeve. It feels good, quietly helpful. Quirky tidbit. In monastic communities, useful idleness was an unofficial rhythm. Chores done not because they were assigned, but because they were there. Sweeping a clean floor, polishing unused tools. It wasn't about productivity. It was about stillness with motion. You find a basket of apples tucked in the corner. You choose one. It's a little soft, but sweet. You eat it slowly as you walk back out, core tucked in your palm like a stone from a path you don't need to follow today. The rain lightens. You walk the perimeter of the garden path, watching droplets cling to sage leaves like tiny bells. You press a hand to the soil, still damp, still alive. You think about fetching your mending. You don't. Not yet. Instead, you return to the porch. Sit. Breathe. The sky has turned the color of parchment. Somewhere far off, a cow moos once. That's the most dramatic thing that happens all afternoon. You let your thoughts drift, like leaves floating downstream, unhurried, undirected. You find yourself dozing. Not sleeping, just resting. The rain slows. The silence expands to fill the space it leaves behind. The wind stirs once, like a breath from the trees. You open your eyes to a sky still gray, but softer now, and the robin is back. He looks at you, then away. You nod. He doesn't nod back. You knew he wouldn't. The rain has stopped. You notice it not all at once, but slowly, how the dripping slows to an occasional plink, how the wind starts to ruffle the trees instead of sliding through them, how the air suddenly smells less like wet wool and more like turned soil. You step off the porch, your boots squelching just slightly in the damp grass. The clouds linger overhead like guests who haven't quite decided whether to stay for supper. You squint up at them, then shrug. There's work to be done. You walk to the edge of the vegetable garden. The beets are holding strong. The cabbage has curled in on itself slightly, sulking from too much water, but it will recover. The sage looks proud, like it knew the storm would pass. You kneel and pull weeds, slowly, thoughtfully, each root coming loose with a quiet sigh. Mainstream historical fact: post-rain tasks were a daily ritual. Soil loosened, air softened, people moved gently, tools were wiped down, animals were coaxed from shelter. It wasn't about fixing anything. It was about resuming, like hitting play on a world paused just for a little while. A worm wriggles free beside your boot. You wish it well and leave it be. The sun threatens to break through the clouds, but doesn't. Just shines faintly around the edges like a secret. You stand, stretch, and brush soil from your knees. Your cloak smells like rosemary now, from brushing past the garden wall. You head toward the orchard. The trees are quiet. Pears hang heavy, water still clinging to their skin like old tears. One has fallen, split on the ground, buzzing with the low tremble of flies. You collect a few that look promising, tucking them into your apron with a rhythm only your hands know. The breeze picks up. You pull your hood up, not because it's cold, but because it feels right. You pass the well. You don't need water, but you look down anyway. The surface is still, reflective. For a moment, you see your face framed in gray sky and stone rim. You don't look away. You smile, just a little. Then keep walking. Quirky tidbit: wells were not only practical, but spiritual. Many believed they held secrets, messages from the past, omens for the future. People dropped coins in them for luck. Some whispered wishes. Some swore they heard answers whispered back, especially after storms. Back at the cloister, the windows glisten, rain beaded and smudged with fingerprints from someone who leaned too far trying to check the weather. Inside, the kitchen smells like apples. Someone stewing them, with cinnamon and a splash of vinegar, if your nose is right. You offer your apron's worth of pears. They're accepted with a nod and the faintest smile. You're handed a spoon and a pot. You stir. Steam rises in small, fragrant clouds. The cat returns. She settles at your feet. She knows this is a good place to wait. You ladle out bowls. Pass them down the line. Take your own. Sit on the bench by the fire. The heat curls around your knees like memory. You eat slowly. The pear is soft and warm and tart and perfect. Someone sings under their breath, near the window. You don't recognize the tune, but you hum along anyway. Outside, the wind shifts again, carries away the last drop from the roof's edge, carries in the faintest hint of something else, wood smoke, maybe, or a promise. You finish your bowl and wash it carefully. Set it on the drying rack. Dry your hands on your apron. Then you walk once more to the porch and sit. You don't do anything else. You just sit. Because sometimes, after a storm, that's all there is to do. And sometimes, that's everything. You wake to sunlight. Real sunlight this time. No veils of mist. No hesitant peeking through clouds, just clear, amber morning light, spilling across the floor like someone finally pulled the sky's curtain all the way back. You blink against it. Stretch your arms overhead. The cat is already gone, out chasing shadows or laying claim to another windowsill. She does not leave notes. You rise slowly, joints offering quiet commentary, and step toward the small basin near the window. The water is cold, but it feels like waking. You splash, then breathe, then splash again, just for the sound. Today feels like a good day to carry things. You put on your sturdier boots, the ones with the crack in the left heel that always clicks when you walk fast. You wrap a linen scarf around your shoulders, tuck a dried sprig of lavender into your pocket. You're not sure why. Habit maybe. Outside, the sky is a deep blue, scrubbed clean by yesterday's rain. You head toward the storage shed. You've been meaning to carry firewood, or repair the fence, or return the basket you borrowed during last month's barley harvest. It doesn't matter where you start. So you start by lifting a stack of kindling and walking it to the hearth store. Mainstream historical fact: daily tasks in historical life were guided more by rhythm than strict scheduling. The weather, the seasons, the sound of a distant bell all determined when you worked, when you paused, when you gave up, and went inside. Lists weren't written. They were carried in your hands. The stack of firewood smells like sun-warmed cedar and something vaguely like cinnamon bark. You balance it carefully, letting the weight press evenly across your arms. You hum again. The same tune. It follows you now like a companion. The kitchen door is open. You nod as you pass. Someone hands you a small cup, water with a slice of apple. It's cool and sweet and unexpectedly perfect. You pause under the sycamore tree just long enough to finish it. The leaves cast soft shadows on the ground like fish scales made of light. You carry the empty cup back. No one says anything, but someone nods again. You return to the shed. The fence needs mending. Of course it does. You find a hammer, a handful of nails, a coil of twine that's seen better seasons. You carry it to the garden's edge, where one post leans like it's had a long night. You press it upright, listen to the creak, then begin rapping and nodding until it stands without complaint. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve, feel proud, slightly splintered, but proud. You sit on the low stone near the compost heap. Ethel, the goose, eyes you with suspicion. You toss her a bit of dry bread. She accepts, begrudgingly. Quirky tidbit. Animals in small communities were more than livestock. They were personalities. The goose that chased children was remembered. The rooster that crowed at midnight was debated. Some were even named in property rolls, wills, and stories passed down for generations. You pluck a bit of mint as you stand and tuck it behind your ear, next to the lavender. It makes no sense, but it makes you smile. You walk back to the kitchen. You help stir. You help slice. You help pass bowls down the long line of hands. Then you eat your own, sitting by the fire. The soup tastes better today. You tell no one. You listen to someone reading aloud from a parchment sheet, something about root vegetables, or maybe philosophy. It's hard to tell the difference with that voice. Later, you carry the baskets back to the storage room. You line them up by size. You place the lids neatly. You brush the dust from the shelf, even though no one asked you to. It feels good to finish something. The sun begins to slant lower. You walk to the well, not for water, just to say hello. You run your hand along the stone rim. It's still warm. You whisper a word into the deep. You don't wait for an answer. Back at your door, you sit once more. The air smells like mint and wood smoke and the last part of the day. You light your small lantern. The flame takes easily. The cat returns. You let her settle. And you rest. Because today was full. And tomorrow is just a few stars away. You wake to the soft creak of floorboards. Not yours. Someone walking past in the hall, carrying a pail or a pot, or just the early weight of another day. You blink into the light, not bright, not dim, just the kind that knows how to wait. The room smells faintly of ash and lavender. The candle stub from last night leans sideways, melted to the saucer like it's asleep. The cat is gone again. You smile. Of course she is. You rise slowly, stretch with a long exhale, and wrap your shawl around your shoulders. The threads catch briefly on your sleeve. You pause to smooth them. It feels like you're telling the day. Wait, just a moment. Outside, the air is cool, not cold. The kind that wakes your skin but leaves your breath unbothered. Today is laundry. You gather the linens, roll your sleeves, and carry the basket to the washing bench behind the orchard wall. It's shaded there, even now in the early sun, and the breeze smells like soap and dew. Mainstream historical fact. Laundry was often a half-day affair. Not daily, not quite weekly, but whenever the pile or the smell demanded it. Wash basins were shared. Soap was made from lard and ash. The work was rhythmic. Scrub, rinse, wring, repeat, and gossip was optional but encouraged. You soak the first tunic. The fabric gives way slowly, like it's remembering how to be clean. You begin to scrub. The sound of it is oddly satisfying. Soft cloth against board, water slapping gently against wood. Birds chatter from the orchard. A squirrel scolds you from a nearby branch, offended by your presence. You rinse the tunic and wring it out. Your arms ache already. That's fine. That's part of it. You move to the next piece. Then another. The sun shifts. By the time the basket is empty, your fingers are puckered and your shirt is damp down the front. But the linens are clean, smelling faintly of pine and pride. You hang them on the line. They billow softly, flapping like flags in a kingdom ruled by quiet satisfaction. You sit on the low wall beside them. Let your feet dangle. Let the sun warm your knees. Someone passes behind you and sets a cup on the wall without a word. Tea, still steaming. Mint and nettle. You nod. They're already gone. You sip slowly. Quirky tidbit, sharing small gestures. A cup of tea, a mended hem, a plucked splinter was the threadwork of medieval communities. These acts weren't tracked or tallied. They simply were. A way of saying, I see you, without needing to say it. You finish the tea. Collect the empty basket. You fold the laundry in the sun, each piece warm, crisp, smelling like work done right. You carry it back inside and stack it neatly near the hearth. Then you sit, because you've earned sitting. You press your hands flat against your knees and feel the pulse of the day moving gently through you. Someone starts humming nearby. The same tune you hum. You don't say anything. Just smile. Outside, the wind picks up slightly. The linens flap again, dancing like they know something you don't. You lie down on your bed for just a moment. The cat returns, drops a twig on your blanket like a tribute, and settles by your feet. You let your eyes close. Not to sleep, not yet. Just to listen. To the birds. To the breeze. To the sound of water still dripping somewhere in a bucket, as if the morning isn't quite finished saying good morning. You wake slowly. Not to a bell or footsteps or anything sharp, just the gentle shift of light, the warm presence of the cat curled against your calves, and the subtle creak of the wooden beam overhead settling into its usual shape for the day. You blink once. Let your eyes adjust. The air smells of fresh earth, baked bread, and something vaguely sweet, perhaps apples cooking down for jam, or maybe just the memory of apples. You stretch, carefully, so as not to disturb the cat. She opens one eye, closes it again. You dress in silence, tugging your tunic down, tying your belt loose. You run a hand through your hair, not for vanity, just to feel more like yourself. Outside, the sun is already high. You step into it like a blessing. Mainstream historical fact. Time in pre-industrial communities wasn't tracked with strict hours. It moved by meals, shadows, and seasons. A late start was not a sin. It was simply the shape of that morning. You wander toward the kitchen, and sure enough, the apple smell is real. A pot simmers on the hearth, and someone stirs with one hand while slicing bread with the other. They nod as you enter. You're handed a piece of crust, still warm, slightly scorched at the edge. You take it with thanks. You eat outside. The orchard is calm, bees murmuring lazily between blossoms, the grass still damp beneath your soles. You sit under your favorite tree, the one with the bent branch low enough to rest your shoulder against. You chew slowly, then lean back. Your fingers trace the bark beside you. A child runs by with a stick and no context. The geese observe with judgment. You wave. They do not wave back. The bread is gone too soon. You lick your thumb and press away the last crumbs from your palm. You rise. Today's task is small but satisfying, collecting kindling from the forest edge. You take a basket, a staff, just in case Ethel has thoughts. A bit of cheese in your pocket, wrapped in cloth. You walk. Past the meadow. Past the patch of forget-me-nots. Past the spot where someone once saw a fox and claimed it was a spirit. You just hope it was a fox. Quirky tidbit. Many medieval forests were treated with a quiet reverence. Not feared, exactly, but respected. People entered softly, took only what was needed, and often left offerings, a bit of bread, a ribbon, a song. Forests were places of work, but also of watchfulness. You find fallen branches, dry, snapped clean. You bundle them one by one. The forest smells like moss and old stories. You hum as you work. Your basket grows heavier, but your shoulders do not. You pause once by a clearing where light filters through like poured honey. You sit on a log and eat your cheese, torn slowly into soft bites. No rush. When you return, the sun is angling westward. The clouds have thickened, but not darkened, just enough to wrap the sky in soft wool. You stack the wood neatly by the hearth. Then you wash your hands in the basin near the door. You light a small candle, just for company. Then you settle at your small table with a needle and thread. There's a hole in your sleeve you've ignored for days. Now seems like the right time. You sew slowly, not for speed, but for the satisfaction of line meeting line, cloth pulled tight, edges no longer unraveling. Mainstream historical fact. Sewing was rarely about making something new. It was about keeping what you had. Garments were mended again and again, sometimes until the original fabric vanished under layers of newer thread. This wasn't frugality, it was respect for time. You tie the knot, snip the thread. You put the needle away in its tin. You place your candle by the window. The cat returns. You let her onto your lap. She purrs, loud and certain. You stroke her back once. Then sit quietly as the light outside turns from gold to gray. Not melancholy, just another color in the day's long ribbon. You close your eyes and listen to the birds settling in, to someone chopping kindling near the gate, to the wind sighing through the orchard like it's looking for someone it already knows is home. You wake to quiet, not silence. There's always something. The rustle of a mouse in the rafters, the distant clink of a spoon against a pot, the soft exhale of wind against the wooden shutter. But it's the kind of quiet that asks nothing of you, just an invitation to exist. You open your eyes slowly. Light spills across the floor in long golden strips, like ribbons pulled from the sun's own pocket. The cat is on your chest. Her tail flicks once. She blinks at you like she's been up for hours. Maybe she has. You stretch beneath her. She tolerates this. You rise, dress, step into your boots, and wrap your scarf twice. The air has that edge today, the faint nip that says the season's thinking about changing its clothes. Outside, the garden shimmers with dew. Everything smells alive and a little too green. Today's task is unspoken, but obvious. The market is coming. You can feel it in the way people walk a little faster, talk a little louder, start pulling out baskets and cloths from storage. You'll help prepare. You begin by sweeping. Mainstream historical fact: market days weren't just commerce, they were performance, preparation, and pride. Villagers tidied paths, arranged goods just so, brushed dust from apples. Even those not selling took part, shaping the space for trade stories and shared breath. You sweep the main path clear of leaves. Not all of them. Just enough to show care without being suspiciously thorough. You stack baskets near the gate. Tie cloth handles where the twine frayed. You help wash the crates and brush down the benches. Someone hands you a list. You pretend to read it seriously. It says, bread, apples, 4 jokes, 1 excellent napkin. You keep it in your pocket. You join a group peeling root vegetables under the shade of a wide-limbed tree. The paring knife is dull, but the rhythm is good. Scrape, peel, drop. Scrape, peel, drop. Someone sings. Someone else claps off beat. You hum along. The same tune. It fits everywhere now. Quirky tidbit. Many small communities developed work songs, tunes passed from task to task, easy to learn, hard to forget. Some had words. Others didn't. A few were just melodies sung between sisters or muttered while chopping onions. These songs were rarely written down, but they lingered longer than the ink ever could. By midday, the sun has crept overhead, casting short, serious shadows. You take a break beneath the same tree, sipping water from a cup carved with a name you don't recognize. The wood is smooth, the rim slightly uneven. You share a slice of bread with someone who trades you a plum in return. You eat both slowly. The cat appears beside you. No one saw her arrive. She sits on your foot like a question mark. You scratch her ear. She allows it. The afternoon passes in soft pieces. You arrange jars on a table, jam, pickled things, dried herbs tied in neat bundles. You listen as someone debates how many eggs make a fair trade for a coon. You nod when someone asks if the carrots look too proud. You carry a crate, hammer a nail, fix a wobble in the bench with a folded cloth. At dusk, the lanterns are lit along the walkways, not for light, but for mood. They flicker in amber and rose. The cat disappears again. You sit by the wall, sipping warm cider now, spiced with clove and a touch of something secret. You watch someone dance, just a little, when they think no one is looking. You see someone else carving a small bird into the handle of their spoon. You write nothing down, but you remember. You walk home slowly, the path lined with shadows and laughter. The sky is full of stars tonight, clear and sharp and distant. You sit by your window before sleep, candlelit, mint tea in your hand. You look out at the trees swaying in the breeze. You say nothing, but your shoulders soften, because tomorrow will come, and you are ready for it. You wake to voices, not urgent, not loud, just the low murmur of people preparing things that feel important in the moment, folding cloths, checking jars, warming bread. The light coming through the shutters is golden, dust-flecked, calm. You stretch. The cat is on the windowsill this time, tail curled like a comma. She watches the street below with the kind of focus reserved for cats and retired knights. You wash your face. Pull on your cleanest tunic, the one that's only patched once, and tuck the hem just so. It smells faintly of rosemary from hanging near the hearth. You walk outside, and the world feels awake in a different way. Stalls are being set up, carts wheeled into place, apples stacked so carefully you hesitate to breathe near them. Someone strings a garland between two posts. Someone else debates aloud whether 3 types of onions is too many. Mainstream historical fact. Market day in a small village wasn't just about buying. It was about being seen, checking in, hearing news. It was where courtships began, friendships reknotted, disputes settled with quiet bartering. It was the weekly heartbeat, soft but steady. You help carry a barrel of dried beans across the square. The wood creaks with every step, and the beans shift like they're whispering secrets inside. You help hang a linen banner, white with a crooked green leaf embroidered in one corner. You help arrange the herb bundles on your neighbor's table. You tie one just a bit too tightly and apologize to the sage out loud. Someone laughs gently behind you. You turn. It's the boy with the carved spoon from last night. He smiles like you've been friends for a decade. You nod. He offers you a piece of plum. You accept. The market settles into its rhythm. People arrive slowly, one by one, in clusters. A steady trickle of boots and baskets and greetings. You sell nothing, but somehow your hands are always full. Someone passes you a comb. Someone else insists you take a pair that's too soft to sell, but too sweet to waste. You are given a button that's shaped like a bird. You don't know why. You pocket it anyway. You watch a child trade a riddle for a handful of dried cherries. You hear a woman sing a line of a song you haven't heard in years. You join in for the second line without meaning to. She nods. Keep singing. Quirky tidbit. Music at markets was often spontaneous. No formal stages, no instruments needed. Just a shared tune, a remembered lyric, a foot tapping in rhythm with a wooden spoon. Songs spread from stall to stall, verse to verse, until the whole space felt like it had a melody of its own. By late afternoon, the square glows with the color of late fruit and worn wood. A dog runs through, delighted to have no job. A pig follows, pretending not to belong to anyone. You drink a cup of honeyed water and sit on a bench warmed by the sun. Someone hands you a small package wrapped in cloth. You open it. Inside is a folded note and a handful of lavender, tied with twine. The note says nothing, but you understand it anyway. You tuck it into your pouch next to the bird button and the riddle you plan to remember tomorrow. Evening begins to fall. The shadows stretch long. People pack up slowly, reluctantly, like they know the spell will break if they move too fast. You help where you can. You carry. You fold. You sweep. The cat finds you again near the end, just before dusk. She walks between your legs and sits directly on your foot. You stay like that for a long while. The fire in the center of the square crackles as the last bits of market magic drift into smoke and sky. You walk home under stars. No lantern needed. Just your hands in your pockets and the sound of contentment following you like a familiar tune. You wake slowly, gently, like a leaf slipping free from a branch. No bells today. No chores lined up like soldiers outside your door. Just morning light, soft, golden, content to let you stay under the blanket a few moments longer. The cat is already gone, likely off to check her usual corners of the world. You stretch. Sit up. Breathe in. The room smells of wood smoke and sleep. You light the small candle on your table. Its flame stirs like it, too, has just woken. You hold your hands near it for a moment, palms open, like a prayer you don't need to speak. Outside, the world is quiet, but not still. The wind moves the branches. Birds murmur to one another. Far off, someone hums the start of your favorite tune. You step into the morning slowly, one breath at a time. Your boots feel lighter today. Your shawl fits just right. You walk the long way around the cloister garden, past the low wall where the bees live. Past the bench where you once mended a sock that never tore again. Past the tree that leans just slightly, as though listening to your thoughts. Mainstream historical fact. In quieter seasons, Time wasn't filled, it was observed. Days without tasks weren't wasted, they were given. Used for mending, wandering, sharpening tools or songs or stories. The value wasn't in doing, but in noticing. You help sweep the walkways, not because they need it, but because the sound of the broom is comforting. You sip tea with someone who doesn't speak much. You polish a spoon until it reflects your nose in a strange way, then laugh at it. You sit beneath the tree at midday, barefoot, knees tucked under your tunic, and you rest. Truly rest. Not waiting for the next task, not worrying about the next bell, just breathing. The wind plays with your scarf. You let it. A child runs past with a string of dried leaves. She smiles at you as if the day itself is your fault. You accept the blame. Later, in the kitchen, you peel apples. The same kind for market day. Each one slightly different. You slice, core, collect. You don't rush. The cat returns and walks across the table. You pretend to be surprised. She doesn't believe you. You light the hearth, stir the pot, season with care. People arrive. Bowls are passed. No one says grace out loud, but someone does hum a line of that song again. You join in, barely. You eat slowly. You clean your bowl. You dry your hands on your apron and step outside one more time before bed. The stars are waiting. They blink back at you, patient, familiar. Quirky tidbit. In many villages, it was believed that stars recorded stories, that every action, small or grand, sent a ripple upward, not for judgment, just for keeping, like pages in a night-bound book. You lie down in your bed. The candle flickers low. The cat curls beside you. Your feet are warm. Your chest is full. And the day, the whole quiet, deliciously boring day, settles around you like a second blanket. Wind down 300 words. So now, close your eyes. Let the broom lean back in the corner. Let the soup simmer just a little longer. Let the wind rustle the curtains without needing to shut the window. Let the day end gently. You have walked soft paths today. Steeped tea that didn't need to fix anything. Carried stories in your pockets and pressed quiet into everything you touched. Your boots are dry. Your sleeves are clean. There's nothing waiting for you tomorrow that can't wait a little longer. You have stitched the day into a perfect patch, one that warms, but doesn't weigh. The stars outside blink slowly, like they know you by name. Your room holds the smell of candle wax and rest. No one is calling. No one needs anything. The cat is already dreaming, her tail curled like a comma at the end of a sentence. You're allowed to pause here, to breathe once more, to sigh, to stay in the softness a little longer. Let the sky turn its pages above you. Let the earth settle beneath you. Let the story close. You have done enough today. And now, you sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.